Nike did not simply release another commercial. They quietly laid out a future plan, massive money, global celebrities, and a message so understated that most fans walked right past it. This was not about humor, not about shooting range, and definitely not basic marketing. It was a blueprint. What Nike chose to do with Caitlin Clark points directly to what comes next and why 2026 is set to reshape women's basketball in a way most people still don't see coming. You've already seen the ad, recognizable faces, loud personalities, that laid-back disbelief. People pretend it's harmless. The doubt feels light, almost playful. Then Caitlin steps forward. No debates, no explanations, no performance for the cameras. Just the ball, the motion, and the outcome. Hey Caitlin, from here, come on. She can't make it. No chance. And then she does, every single time. Nike called the campaign From Anywhere. Most viewers took it at face value. Deep shots, logo pull-ups, long-range highlights. That was never the real message. Nike was not pushing distance. They were pushing inevitability. They were telling you something far bigger. And if you missed it, you're not alone. Because what Nike understands, and what many brands overlook, is that great athletes don't just win. They reset what people expect. And once expectations shift, the entire business model has to follow. Here's what matters. If you believe the story behind the story is where the real power sits, hit that like button right now. It tells us you're tracking this the same way we are. Because what's about to unfold in 2026 isn't just about one player or one shoe. It's about an entire league being forced to recalibrate how it values influence, investment, and global scale. Let's filter out the noise and connect the dots. Many of you have been saying this for weeks. You were onto something when you noticed the campaign felt different. It wasn't just another endorsement deal. It was a statement. Nike doesn't move this carefully unless they're planning something structural. And when you start pulling at that thread, what unravels is far more calculated than anyone wants to admit publicly. The commercial itself was perfectly engineered. Those celebrities weren't placed there for decoration. They represented a very specific kind of doubt. The casual kind, the smiling kind, the kind that pretends to be harmless while quietly dismissing what's coming. Caitlin has faced that tone her entire career. Not anger, not hostility, just disbelief, wrapped in confidence. Whatever. Check. From there, that's going to be your livelihood. Looks like she can do it. Nike understood viewers would recognize that instantly, because almost everyone has underestimated her at some point, and almost everyone has watched her turn that doubt into routine outcomes. That's leverage. That's not about mechanics. That's about influence reshaping behavior. And once you understand that Nike was capturing a pattern, not creating hype, the rest of the strategy starts making sense. Then came the numbers. The kind of numbers that force boardrooms to stop debating and start planning. Caitlin Clark generated an estimated $36 million in economic impact on her own. That accounted for nearly 27% of the league's total economic impact, even while she missed time. Read that again. One player, 27% of the entire league's economic footprint. That's not popularity. That's structural influence. For the first time, the WNBA had hard evidence. Not projections, not hopeful forecasts. Proof that one player could move the entire business. Ratings surged when she played and dipped when she didn't. Cities felt the difference. Merchandise sales showed it. Sponsors tracked it closely, and once that reality is on paper, it doesn't disappear overnight. It gets leveraged. That's when Nike made their move. Not rushed, not leaked. Deliberate. Caitlin Clark's signature shoe, scheduled for spring 2026. The timing isn't accidental. By 2026, the pieces lock into place. Caitlin healthy, league momentum rising, global attention growing. Nike leadership has already framed it clearly. CEO Elliott Hill emphasized they're building this with her, not for her, with her. That distinction matters more than it seems, because this isn't about slapping a logo on a product and hoping casual fans pick it up. This is about positioning a signature basketball shoe to compete at the highest level globally, not just in the women's category, in basketball, period. People who study sports business are already circling projections. Some believe this signature shoe could reach 9-figure revenue and grow into a top 5 signature franchise across all of basketball. Not just the women's side, all of it. If those numbers hold, and the early indicators suggest they will, this becomes the proof of concept the entire industry has been waiting for. Not speculation, not goodwill marketing, actual returns that justify equal investment. And that's the hidden message everyone missed. Nike wasn't celebrating Caitlin's range in that commercial. They were announcing their bet. They were saying, we believe this player can reshape the business model, and we're putting the resources behind it to prove it. The campaign also hinted at something bigger. China was mentioned, not casually, strategically. Caitlin has been clear from the start. Visibility alone isn't the goal. Opportunity is the point. This shoe isn't designed to sit untouched on shelves or live behind glass. It's meant to hit hardwood. It's meant to land in gyms that have never had this level of belief pushed into them before. Youth programs, community courts, international growth, global visibility tied to real participation. That mindset shifts everything. And if you're reading between the lines the way we are, you're starting to see why 2026 matters. This isn't just a return season, it's a marker. A moment where women's basketball steps fully into global branding space that once felt locked behind men's sports. Bigger platforms, bigger expectations, bigger responsibility, and Caitlin Clark sits at the center of that shift, not as a lone star, but as a connector. The foundation for all of this was built long before the cameras arrived. There was a driveway in Iowa, cold winters, rough concrete, a slanted surface that made every shot tougher than it had to be. Most kids would have adjusted and moved on. Caitlin did something else. She asked her dad to rip up the grass, not to make it look better, not for comfort. She wanted space to shoot from deeper. She wanted a full 3-point line. That choice reveals how her mind works. She doesn't work around limits. She gets rid of them. And that pattern, that refusal to accept the boundaries others set, is what Nike recognized wasn't temporary. It was foundational. Doubt turned into distance. Distance turned into confidence. Confidence turned into influence. Influence turned into opportunity. That sequence matters because it can be repeated. That blueprint doesn't stop with her. It multiplies when the right systems support it. As Caitlin Clark climbed from one level to the next, the voices never disappeared. They just changed uniforms. Too small, too slow. That style won't translate here. High school coaches said college defenders would expose her. College analysts said pros would neutralize her. WNBA commentators claimed her range would shrink once the athletes got faster and stronger. Different stages, same script. And every time, the ending stayed the same. She didn't trim her game to survive. She widened it to dominate. Early on, people mistook volume for recklessness. They saw deep shots and assumed risk. What they missed was control, footwork, balance, shot selection that was calculated, not chaotic. Over time, the pattern became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a shooter gambling on confidence. This was precision stacked on repetition. Night after night, the same outcomes kept showing up. Defenses tried everything. Sitting back didn't work. Stepping up opened driving lanes. Trapping high turned into instant punishment. Pressing full court drained energy and exposed spacing. There was no clean answer because she wasn't attacking one defender. She was attacking structure. That forced a shift. Coaches stopped preparing for a team and started preparing for a force. Scouting reports expanded. Practice plans changed. Entire game plans revolved around where she might pull up from, not where she was supposed to. That kind of gravity bends the floor in ways statistics don't fully capture. And here's where it gets interesting. Drop a comment right now and tell us what you think happens when Nike's signature shoe launches in 2026. Do the revenue projections hold? Does this shift how the entire WNBA gets valued globally? Because what we're tracking suggests this isn't just about one product release, it's about proving a business case that's been ignored for decades. What followed was expectation. Shots that once shocked crowds started feeling inevitable. A long break, a late closeout, a defender leaning the wrong way, a split-second window opening. The response came before the ball even left her hands. That's when the sport started moving around her instead of against her. Nike saw that before most people did. They didn't study Caitlin Clark as a shooter. They studied her impact, how space changed when she crossed half court, how defenders hesitated, how fans leaned forward earlier in games and stayed locked in longer. Then her rookie season arrived, and the volume went up. Veterans questioned the attention. Media voices waited for regression. Fans sat back expecting reality to level things out. Instead, reality adjusted. The pace didn't slow. The pressure didn't shake her. The influence expanded. That's when the conversation stopped being about whether she belonged and started becoming about how much the league would have to change to keep up. At that point, the debate was no longer about shots. It was about structure. And once structure starts shifting, there's no going back. The numbers backed it up in a way the league couldn't ignore. That $36 million economic impact wasn't a fluke. It was a signal. One player could move metrics that entire marketing departments spend years trying to shift. That kind of leverage doesn't show up often. And when it does, smart money pays attention. Nike slowed the rollout deliberately because this was never about speed. It was about scale. By spring 2026, everything aligns. The league enters a critical growth phase. Global interest peaks. Broadcast deals expand. And Caitlin Clark, healthy and established, sits at the center of the most calculated product launch in women's basketball history. Not as an experiment, as a foundation. Look at how she moves now. She lifts teammates instead of stacking credit. She redirects praise instead of collecting it. Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell. She doesn't crowd the spotlight, she stretches it. That's by design. Because what Nike understood is that from anywhere was never really about distance. It was about origin. It was a message to kids who think their starting point decides their ceiling. Where you begin doesn't get the final say. That driveway in Iowa wasn't special because of geography. It was special because of belief. Cold mornings, uneven ground, no shortcuts. Begging her dad to tear up grass and pour more concrete so she could have an entire three-point line. That kid shooting alone in freezing weather wasn't just building range. She was building leverage. She was building proof. Proof that belief, when paired with work, can move systems that once felt immovable. And here's what most people still don't see. This signature shoe release isn't the finish line. It's a signal, a marker that women's basketball has crossed into a new phase where stars aren't treated as experiments or exceptions. They're treated as foundations, real investment, real scale, real global intention. That shift didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. It happened because one player kept expanding the game instead of shrinking herself to fit it. Look at what changed along the way. Ratings followed her, cities adjusted, defenses warped, business models evolved, conversations got louder, and when the noise peaked, the results stayed steady. That's what separates moments from movements. Movements hold up under pressure. Caitlin Clark never asked to be the center of everything. She built something that pulled everything toward her. Teammates rose. The league stretched. Fans leaned in earlier and stayed longer. Young players saw themselves differently, not because someone told them to believe, but because they were shown proof. That's the real legacy taking shape. Not just records, not just shoes, a repeatable pathway from overlooked beginnings to undeniable presence, from doubt to opportunity, from one driveway to global courts. And this is why 2026 matters, not as a prediction, but as a confirmation. Women's basketball is no longer asking for space. It's taking it. Brands are no longer testing the waters, they're committing. The audience is no longer niche, it's expanding, sticking, and demanding more. So here's the real question. Does Caitlin Clark's signature Nike release shift how the WNBA is valued, marketed, and invested in globally? Does it open doors for the next generation that never had access before? Are people ready for what women's basketball looks like when global brands finally treat it like the force it has already become? Because the answer to those questions determines what happens next, not just for one player, but for an entire sport that's been waiting for this moment. If you want to stay ahead of where this league, this business, and this culture are going next, you need to be here. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because when Nike drops that signature shoe in spring 2026, the entire conversation shifts, and we'll be breaking down every angle, every number, every signal before it becomes obvious to everyone else. Share this video with someone who still thinks this is just about basketball shoes. It's not. It's about economic transformation. We'll be tracking the next chapter in this story, the one where the investment either proves itself or falls short. Stay locked in. This is where the real story lives.